The following program has a voluntary rating of TV PG-13. Some scenes may contain material that some may consider disturbing and intense. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. For this episode of the show, we'll be talking about a few different situations with a few different stories. Before we get started, please do me a favor and click the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel. You might also click the follow button if you're watching on Rumble. That way you can make sure to get notifications when new episodes come out. If you're watching on YouTube, you might want to make sure the subscription section is set to all so you can get notified when all new episodes are released. Now, I'm going to share a few stories with you today, and one of those stories is about a situation that ended in death. You'll know about it when we get to that point in the show. I'd like to start off by giving an update on the paranormal activity in the house where I live. Since I did some grounding, I haven't been seeing apparitions, but there has been a few minor occurrences. Sometimes I'll see shadow figures out of the corner of my eyes. Sometimes I still have the lamp in my bedroom come on all by itself. I even had this happen last month in March of 2025 as I was making the last episode of the show. During the night between Wednesday the 25th of September 2024 and Thursday the 26th, a strange thing happened. My mom witnessed an interesting thing happen as she lay in her bed. She had gone to rest and lay in her bed for a while because she wasn't feeling well. My mom was feeling a little sick and lying in bed when she saw a ball of light come in through her bedroom window. She also started hearing a ringing in her ears and heard tapping sounds on the wall. She told me that the tapping sounds seemed like I was using a fly swatter to kill flies in the bathroom which bordered the wall of her bedroom. Yet I think I went to bed early that night, so it couldn't have been me. My father was awake and doing some paperwork for taxes and also doing some things on the computer at the other end of the house. The ball of light she saw went along the wall where her window was, and then went along the wall over the head of her bed, which was at the back of our house. The illuminated orb seemed to stop over her head and stayed there for a minute or two. My mom said she didn't move because she didn't feel well, so she just stayed laying there. She lay there wondering what the ball of light was, but she didn't have enough strength to get up. As my mom saw the light near the wall at the head of her bed, she wondered if it was an angel sent to heal her. The illuminated ball stayed there for a few minutes. It then faded and disappeared. A while later, when she regained her strength, she got up and asked my dad to get her some pills and sit with her. She hoped the pills would help her feel better. Yet a short time later, she was able to get some sleep, and the next day she felt better than she had felt in days. That next day she told me about the things that had happened. She told me about the ball of light, and that she felt a lot better since that time. We were both hoping that this was a visitation from either God or an angel that was sent to heal her. As we discussed the incident, we hoped it wasn't any unsavory paranormal activity. We discussed the issue, and I told her I had seen a lot of strange things in this house as well. I was going to tell her about the sparkling head I saw enter through the ceiling in my room one day, but I decided not to tell her that. She had told me in the past not to tell her about paranormal stuff because it seemed too creepy for her to withstand. I kept the conversation light, and she reiterated that she didn't want to hear any eerie paranormal stories. She also wasn't really sure if this might have been a visitation from God or an angel. She insinuated that she didn't know what it was or how to even figure out what it was. So we both agreed that we hoped it was a visitation from God or an angel, but neither one of us knew for sure. I also had something happen a bit later that year, on the night of the 2nd of December in 2024. A lamp that was beside my bed suddenly turned on by itself once again. Then, in the middle of the night, it turned on by itself again. The next morning, it turned on by itself again at the time I normally get up in the morning. That day, December 3rd, as I got home from work, the lamp started turning itself on and off by itself. I had a solid metal replica sword leaning against the wall that was touching the lamp, and I wondered if that was causing the problem. I pulled the sword back away from the lamp, and the lamp stopped turning on and off by itself. I think that might have been the problem, but I wasn't sure. I think the sword was grounding the lamp to make it switch on and off repeatedly. During the early morning hours of Monday the 17th of March in 2025, there was a thunderstorm. I think it was about 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. The thunder woke me up, and I went to the bathroom to use the toilet since I was up. I went back to sleep, and I was awakened about an hour later because my back hurt really bad. I then took my pillow and switched ends of the bed to lay down with my head at the foot end of the bed. I then went back to sleep for a while. A couple hours later, I was awakened again by a bright light that seemed to be shining in my face. As I tried to open my eyes, I had to hold my hands in front of my face to shield my eyes from the bright light. I made a slow move to peek between my fingers so I could see what type of light was shining in my face. I wondered if the police or fire squad had burst into my house due to an emergency. I spoke up out loud and said, "What's going on?" I didn't hear any response to my comment as my eyes started to adjust to the light. I peeked between my fingers, but didn't see anyone in my bedroom. I lay there looking back and forth from one side of the room to the other and still didn't see anyone there. All I noticed was that my lamp was shining its bright light, and the light was glaring in my eyes. It seemed like my lamp had turned on all by itself. There was nothing touching my lamp from what I could see, at least not this time. I have some replica metal swords next to it, but they weren't touching it or grounding it at all. I started to realize that it might be more paranormal activity once again. I wondered if I might need to do another grounding to keep the activity to a minimum or stop the activity altogether. I had the lamp plugged into a surge protector power strip that had a switch built into it. so I pushed the switch to make sure the lamp got turned off. The light went out and I rolled over to go back to sleep. I thought to myself that if the lamp came on again, I might have a really big problem with a very powerful entity. I also thought that if any spirits were trying to get my attention, they need to realize that it's my time to sleep, and I didn't want to be disturbed, so they need to pay attention to my boundaries. As it turned out, there were no other strange occurrences that night, but I was starting to wonder if I needed to do another grounding. The times that I grounded myself outside, I noticed most of the paranormal activity stopped for months. At least I didn't see any apparitions since I started grounding myself. Grounding myself with my bare feet on the ground outdoors seemed to be the only thing that helped. That brings most of my current paranormal activity up to date for this year, which is 2025 at the time this video was made. I would now like to take the time to talk about a couple of other incidents that happened over the last few years. One of those incidents happened in February of 2024, and it was something that left me shocked and stunned. I saw something strange in February of 2024 when our family gathered to celebrate my uncle's 90th birthday. It was the 10th of February when we celebrated the occasion at a local restaurant. Since this involves my cousin's husband, I'll refrain from giving their real names. I'll call my cousin by the name Nancy, and I'll call her husband John. We all met at a local restaurant, and we pulled a few tables together so a large group of us relatives could sit and eat together. When I say relatives, there's a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins in our family, so we were all planning to gather there, and it was probably going to be at least a dozen or 2 dozen of us. Our relatives arrived, a few at a time, over the span of probably about a half an hour. As we started taking our seats around the table, we talked amongst ourselves and watched others arrive as well. I noticed as my cousin Nancy and her husband John came in and sat down at a table that was in a corner of the room, I noticed something strange as my cousin and her husband sat down in the corner. I looked over at my cousin's husband John, and I noticed a strange double shadow around him that seemed to be on both sides of him. I rubbed my eyes and did a double take to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. I could understand a shadow on one side of a person, but I couldn't figure out how there could be a dark shadow on a person's left and right side. It looked like John had a black aura all the way around his body that stuck out about 2 inches around his whole body. I had heard that some rare people could see other people's aura, and that the colors were significant to specific aspects of those people or their lives. I had also wished that I could see people's auras, but up to this point in my life, I had never seen people's auras. A few days before this, I had found a website that gave a description to help people see their own aura. It talked about holding your hand up in front of you to see if you could see your own aura. If you couldn't, it mentioned that you could hold your hand up to a wall with a single colored paint job. Usually the paint job should be a light color like white or light tan or light yellow. It said to look at your hand again to see if you could see your own aura. If you couldn't, it mentioned that you could look off to the side of your hand a bit and then try to notice out of the corner of your eye if there are any colors on the edge of your hand or fingers. I could see a bit of my own blue aura. It seemed like a very thin blue line around my fingers and hands. This occasion in the restaurant, I could see a thick 2-inch black line surround my cousin's husband, John. I dismissed it at first and rubbed my eyes and did a double take. Yet I could still see the black aura. I didn't think I could see other people's auras, so I thought I must have been mistaken and was only seeing a shadow, or that the lighting was a bit off kilter in the room. I thought I was seeing a double shadow on his left and right because the electrical lights and the sunshine coming in the large window on the front of the restaurant. I thought maybe both lights were coming from different directions, and maybe that's why there was two shadows, or what looked like two shadows. Since I rarely, if ever, saw other people's auras, I thought I must have been mistaken, but there was a nagging feeling in my mind. Some of the nagging feelings in my mind were from some people's comments that when they saw black auras around people, that those people usually died shortly after that time. I looked at John, and he seemed like he had walked slower than he used to, but he had been that way for 1 or 2 years. He seemed lively and had some good conversation with some people, so I didn't pay attention to those nagging feelings that were coming through. Besides, if I had mentioned anything, I think people would have considered me to be a bit weird, or that I had too many outlandish ideas. A day or two later, my parents got the call and were told that John had died the morning after the birthday celebration. So in less than 24 hours after I saw the black aura, my cousin's husband died. It was exactly as I had heard other people warn about black auras. It was a precursor of death. We went to the funeral a few days later, and I wondered if I should have warned them about the black aura I had seen. I didn't want to upset anyone, though, so I didn't mention it to anyone. I wondered if I should warn other people if I ever see black aura around any other people. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway, but they would likely think I was a bit weird or crazy for mentioning such things. A few years ago, in 2017, I had an incident with my nephew who was helping my family renovate a house. It was the same nephew who saw a doll move inside the house where he lives. The same nephew who thought he saw a banshee outside his window and then he fainted. It was all one and the same. As my nephew worked with us, there was a day when he had a bad reaction to some medicine he was taking. I told him that he could sit down in our pickup truck and rest for a while. I checked on him after a few minutes, and he said he wasn't feeling well. He had a headache, he was nauseous, a bit dizzy, and it seemed like he was starting to see things. He said he couldn't possibly be seeing what he thought he was seeing, but it sure seemed like he was seeing something. I asked him what it was that he was seeing. I asked him because the house we were working on was one where my work crew and I had seen paranormal activity. You can see what happened at that house in Season 1, Episode 3 of the show. My nephew paused before he told me what he was seeing, but he then told me he saw short, demonic creatures. I asked him to describe what he was seeing, so he described them. He said they looked like what people would typically call demons. They were like demons in paintings from the Middle Ages, or like gargoyles, except without wings. What I think people from previous century called goblins and hobgoblins, except the ones he saw were short. I asked him how short they looked to be. The way he described it made me think they were the size of children or toddlers. So they were about 2 to 3 feet, or 2/3 of a meter to 1 meter. My nephew then opened the truck door because he felt like he was going to vomit. He was still having a little bit of a reaction from the medication, and he was very nauseous at the time. I couldn't tell if he just spit on the ground or if he vomited a small amount. I told him that he should take his soda and rinse his mouth out and spit it out on the ground. That way he wouldn't have a bad taste in his mouth or have terribly bad breath. He rinsed his mouth out, like I said, but he mentioned that he still felt nauseous. I then asked him if he wanted me to maybe pray for him. Since I had my event that was similar to a near-death experience, my prayer seemed to be very effective in getting answered, so I wanted to pray for him. He told me that he did want me to pray for him, so I did. I figured that it couldn't hurt, and I hoped it would help. So I prayed and asked God to give my nephew a miracle, to heal him from this bad reaction so he wouldn't feel sick. I only said a short prayer, and then my nephew said he felt a lot better. I told my nephew he was welcome to keep resting if he felt like he needed to, but I wanted to go back to work. I went back to work and checked on him every few minutes, and he seemed to be getting some good rest, so I continued to let him rest. I'm not sure if my prayer saved him from a demonic attack, or if it was a simple case of medically induced hallucinations. Either way, I was glad he was better, and I hope that I helped him avoid a bad problem. I made my way through the latter half of the springtime in 2023 by using sage to keep the spirit activity under control in my house. The summer was hot and felt oppressive, so I didn't feel like using sage all that much during those days, but I hoped there wouldn't be any problems. My hopes were fulfilled, and I didn't see much spirit activity for most of the summer. I did notice something as I went to work remodeling a house on Tuesday, August 8th. I stood in the kitchen of this house that we had been renovating for a while, and as I looked for some tools, I saw a person out of the corner of my eye in the dining room. The person seemed to lean over to peek into the kitchen and then walk back towards the front of the house in the living room. I walked over to see who it was, and as I passed the hallway, I saw my dad through the glass storm door at the front of the house doing some work. I knew it wasn't him unless he moved at light speed to get up to the front of the house. I knew that none of us could move nearly 50 feet in about a quarter of a second from the back to the front of the house. I kept walking to the dining room to see who was in there, but I didn't see anyone in there, or the living room as I gazed up in that direction either. I was quite certain that I had seen someone's head peek out from the edge of the doorway at the dining room. I could also hear my coworker Ed working upstairs. I went to go make sure he was there, and I wasn't imagining things. As I got to the stairs, I saw Ed working upstairs. I looked around downstairs a bit more and couldn't find anyone there. I guess that it was either my eyes playing tricks on me, or else some spirits were moving around in the house once again. A short time after this, I had to go work on another house, and this house sat dormant once again. I'm still working on this house because the work keeps getting delayed as we go to work on other houses. The other houses are closer to the area where we live, so we prefer to work on those than the one that's about an hour away. Tuesday, March 12th of 2024, I was working in a house that I had renovated in about 2012 or 2013. I went to plug in an extension cord and put it through an open window to a coworker who was standing outside. He needed to use a power tool to work on the outside of the house. As I stood in one bathroom, I heard someone walk up behind me and say, "Huh?" I turned around to see who was asking me something, yet as I turned around, I didn't see anyone and remembered that there wasn't anybody inside the house with me at all. I turned around to see my coworker outside the window, yet I had just heard a voice inside the house. The problem was, there was no one else there. Later that week, and a couple of times the next week, I thought I saw someone out of the corner of my eye walking through the house where I live. I kept turning my head to see who it was, but I never saw anybody when I turned in that direction where I thought I saw somebody. Since I did some grounding with my bare feet on the ground in late 2023 and winter of the 2023-2024 season, I haven't noticed much activity in the house where I live. I keep seeing things out of the corner of my eye sometimes, yet at other times I think I see someone in the chair at the computer in our dining room. Yet, as I do a double take and look back, I don't see anything there. As I sit down to eat an evening meal, sometimes I can see something out of the corner of my eye at the main side entry door. Yet as I turn to get a better look, I don't see anyone there. This has happened several times. At first I thought I was only seeing my long hair out of the corner of my eye. Yet when I got my hair cut, I still saw those things out of the corner of my eye when I sat at the dining room table. So apparently it probably wasn't my long hair. As for now, I'd just like to say that if you like this video and want to see more videos like this, please click the like button. That lets me know that people appreciate this show. It also helps the algorithm so other people can find this show. As always, remember to click subscribe or follow on Rumble so you can make sure you don't miss an episode. You might also click on the little arrow on the YouTube subscribe button and make sure it's set to all. That way you can make sure you get notifications for every episode that comes out. If there's anything you especially liked about the show, feel free to comment about it down below in the comments section. If you would like for me to give more details or clarification on these events, you can ask about it in the comments section. As usual, watch to the end of the credits because I'll give some comments or previews on the next episode, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. As for now, I'm your host, Larry Hollingster, host of Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. Or at least that's what I'm calling myself. That's not my real name, but that's what I'm calling myself for this show. Larry Hollingster. Hollingster is not a real word or a real name. It's actually a conglomeration of about 5 different names that I invented. And I even invented a middle name for myself, so I call myself Larry Scaringall Hollingster. So, I'm your host, Larry Scaringall Hollingster, for the show Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. I hope to see you in the next episode where we'll talk about more tales of the supernatural. As for now, I'll just say, good night, don't let the bed bugs bite, and don't let the ghosts give you a fright. And for now, see you later.